Let's take a closer look at this with Robert Daly. He's director of the Wilson Center's Kissinger Institute on China and the United States. Welcome to DW. What would Nancy Pelosi hope to achieve by visiting Taiwan and annoying the Chinese in this way?
Well, you're starting with the right question. No very clear rationale has been given other than generally showing support for the people of Taiwan and their democracy. And the United States has shown support, and in fact has increased its demonstrations of support over the past several years with leaders' visits, with more arms sales, for example. So what new or additional value the Speaker of the House's trip to Taiwan would provide is not clear, and there's been no real claim made for that I've heard.
Right. So as well as angry rhetoric, within all this angry rhetoric, which we've heard often from the Chinese, they've also said today not to expect its military to stand idly by if this trip happens. What are their options realistically?
The Chinese side has now committed to making some response with the People's Liberation Army that they haven't made previously. That does not mean, and it probably won't mean, pulling a trigger. It will mean doing something like flying over the midline in the Taiwan Straits between Taiwan and mainland China, an action that will mean nothing to most Americans, certainly, and most people in the world. It could mean going into Taiwan's airspace, which it hasn't done previously. It could mean escorting or shadowing the Speaker of the House's plane for part of its trip. It could also mean biding its time and waiting until after the trip and taking some action at a time of its own deciding. So we don't know. It will probably not be kinetic or lead to a direct conflict, but it will establish a new precedent and a new baseline for relations between China, Taiwan, and the United States, which is likely to bring us, a little bit closer to conflict.
So if Nancy Pelosi does visit Taiwan, President Biden can still reasonably claim that US policy towards the island hasn't changed. But as China becomes increasingly assertive, is the US going to have to pick a side and drop this so-called strategic ambiguity?
I don't think it's time to drop strategic ambiguity quite yet. The United States clearly has changed its attitude toward the one China policy, and this began under the Trump administration. But the Biden administration has picked up on this idea that since 1979, the United States has been too sensitive to China's hypersensitivity. And really what remains of the one China policy is an American commitment not to support Taiwanese independence and to recognize only Beijing as the government of the People's Republic of China. But outside of that, we are now sending more leaders to Taiwan. We are making more sales to Taiwan, and we are welcoming Taiwanese officials into official American government buildings. So the one China policy, the core of it is still there, but the style and meaning of it, the seriousness with which it's taken, that clearly has changed.
Good talking to you. That's very clear. Thanks for joining us. Robert Daly from the Wilson Center's Kissinger Institute on China and the United States.
Thank you.